confirm that people who had not been sworn in, make sure they were sworn in, and that was involving you, Mr. Manager. All right, thank you. All right, thank you. If no one else wishes to cross-examine, I believe we have all the participants who decided to cross-examine, so the applicant has the opportunity for summation and rebuttal.
Hi, good evening. Ellie Zacharias again. So I was hoping to not go through my presentation, but I will touch on a few issues. First, just a points of clarification. This was previously approved in 2020, in October of 2020. And while I appreciate Mr. Shad estimating 50 hours this month on these questions that have been raised, I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Shad, but we were delayed in 2020 for 4 months between planning and zoning and city council. 4 months. As you all know, it's typically the following month. After planning and zoning, questions by Mr. Unjin were raised, multiple questions, multiple emails, and Brandon, rightfully so, said, we're halting this, and it took 4 months of back and forth between Maria Tahira, Jahira, us, everybody, making sure all of our T's were crossed and all of our I's were dotted. We've been through this. I've already seen this rodeo, and we've, I believe, addressed every single one of Mr. Unjian's concerns. We did that 2 years ago. Nonetheless, here we are. We already have an approved master plan. We are not asking for one additional unit. We are not asking for anything more than was previously approved. Do we have some amendments to the master plan? We do. But that is solely because the city requires so much detail when we got our master plan approval that any change triggered a master plan amendment. And that includes, but not limited to, the fact that we're adding a gate interior to our parking garage. That is one of the 8 master plan amendments, because that is how detailed our approval was in 2020. As far as the matrix goes, literally nothing has changed in our matrix from 2020 to today. Nothing. It is the exact same matrix. A couple other things. I do want to take, I'm sorry, I don't want to talk too much. I know it's been a really long night. I do want to talk just for a minute about the deceleration lane. So, yes, originally the county requested, as did the city, a deceleration lane. We met with the county on numerous occasions. Once we realized that in order to provide this deceleration lane, it's a domino effect. There's only so much right-of-way, and we do not own. And by the way, for the record, the property that the association owns was not counted in our FAR density. It is not part of this application. I just wanted to make that clear. So we met with the county on numerous occasions because the deceleration lane, which was approved in the original master plan, could not be provided because there wasn't enough right-of-way. So prior to going to the association, we went to the county and we requested things. I believe it was Mr. Perez who said, have we looked at shifting lanes to the east? We had hours of conference calls with the county. We talked about reducing lane widths. We talked about shifting lanes to the east and transitioning them further south. We talked about everything. And the result we got from all of those countless hours of meetings was, Ellie, remove the deceleration lane. That is what we got. So then we went back to the city, and I found this section of the code that very clearly says, if there is not enough right-of-way, you do not have to build one. It is not up for discretion. The only discretionary portion of this section is whether you need a 35-foot radius, a 40-foot radius, a 45-foot radius, or a 50. I requested that the architect just design it with a 50-foot radius because that is the maximum. Just design it with a 50-foot radius and let's be done. So we did that and we submitted to the city. Mr. Shad asked as a courtesy if we would nonetheless, despite the fact that this section applies, if we would nonetheless go to the association. I said, absolutely, we have no problem going to the association. So we did. I will say for the record, this is the same association that Mr. Unshian sits on. The association denied our request. It's not our property, it's the association's property. So here we are. Couple other things. Congress is under capacity, by the way, for the record. And counts were done prior to COVID because, as I mentioned, this came before you guys in October of 2020. So all of our traffic counts were done way before COVID. I know it's hard to believe there was life before COVID, but here we are. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions from you all that you may have.
And that other than questions, that concludes your presentation?
That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Any questions? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing on this matter and we'll entertain a motion to adopt Resolution 32, 2022. Do I hear a motion? See microphones reached for.
Microphone.
Ms. Drucker?
Go ahead. So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Just to be clear for the record, the motion is to grant?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes. A motion, so the motion is to
The
grant.
motion is to grant, tell me. Right, say the resolution?
Yeah, yeah. It's 32.
I
You want to say
apologize.
it? Okay.
32-2022.
That's what you want me
It's
to
set
say.
up in normal as a consideration, so it can be a grant or deny. The motion is to grant. The resolution would be revised to reflect grant.
So the motion would be the motion request is to grant resolution number 32, 2022 with the
amendments requested by the applicant.
requested by the applicant.
Very good. Is there a second to that motion?
And I will second that.
Thank you. Who would like to start up discussion, if any? I'll start. I just want to say thank you. Staff works incredibly hard. I think this is an example of it. I think it's probably a great deal of time. I know the Millennium applicants feel differently than staff. I know you feel passionately about it. That has been communicated. That has been transmitted in emails that I've spent a great deal of time just reading, and that's why I asked Mr. Shad about the time spent. Reasonable minds can disagree. Even experts or professionals can disagree. I'm confident that staff has done the analysis, and I'm comfortable with recommendations, and I'm going to vote in favor of this project. Going to Ms. Zacharias' point, I'm sympathetic to the fact that our process takes a while. And here, and I think you saw it tonight, we probably gave more time to a potential party who felt that they were adverse than we have in any other meeting in terms of cross-examination. I don't imagine Mr. Shad has probably spent as much time on one single application as he has in responding here. And maybe from a policy standpoint, we need to make sure that we're not allocating so much to one particular set of objections, as strenuous as they may be. And to Ms. Zacharias' point, I was discussing earlier with the city manager what we need to do for what are relatively minor changes and consider in the grand scheme if whether some of these might be best addressed by IDA, administrative IDA, or other procedures. That's not before us tonight. We went through it the hard and long way, but I'm comfortable with what I've heard from staff and the copious discussion tonight. So that's my comments. Any further comments? Mr. Thomson?
My comments are similar. I trust that the staff, I reviewed the staff's analysis. I found it to be comprehensive, as well as the time spent addressing concerns as they were raised. I'm comfortable with the recommendation that this satisfies the PMD. I'm satisfied that it meets the requirements, and I plan on supporting it as well.
No further discussion? All right. Seeing none, Ms. Siddons, will you please call the roll?
Mayotte?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
O'Rourke?
Yes.
Singer?
Yes.
Drucker?
Yes.
Motion passes 5 votes to 0.
Thank you. We'll move on in our meeting. We have no regular public hearings, and we have no regular public hearings and settlements, so we'll open the floor to public requests. I do have 3 cards, and then afterwards, anyone who wishes to make a request can come forward, give your name and address, and you'll have up to 5 minutes. The first 3 cards I have are from William Millard, Milena Millard, and Susan Riley. So if you'd like to come forward, and thank you for coming, everyone. If you'd like to remain, we are happy to have you here. Colonel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to you today.
Please give us your name and address.
Say again?
Please give us your name and address, and I know you're going to make
Sure.
some requests. We normally take up any requests, like, questions. We'll take them up at the conclusion of the public request period.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Millard. I live at 9811 Spanish Isles Drive in Boca Raton. part of the community. Milena lives with me. We have a couple other folks with us from the VFW and so forth. As residents of the Boca Raton area, the people before you and a few others that aren't here, we couldn't sit by anymore and watch what's going on in Ukraine and the atrocities that are happening every day. So we tried to figure out what we could do. And you have to understand, I worked cooperative threat reduction in Ukraine for several years. So I helped destroy the SS-19s and the SS-21s that if they had down might be preventing Putin from having done all that. And so my wife, who was born in Kiev, and I started talking to we spend from 5 in the morning till 10 in the morning, pretty much checking on our friends that are still there. Our relatives think are mostly out, but there are some distant relatives that remain behind. And as such, we decided to figure out how we could help. And so we are together putting on a concert with the support of VFW Post 9610 out of Lake Park, Florida, on May 21st at the Meisner Park Amphitheater from 2 to 11 p.m. And we're raising specifically for specific things that fall between the cracks between military aid and the humanitarian aid that's being provided. Now, what we wanted to ask you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, and I appreciate very much that you took the time to come and talk to me. I do. You don't ask, though, you don't get, and I'll try to frame it in a way that makes sense. Yes, we are using 9610 as a nonprofit to collect the donations to go to Ukraine. But we also feel very strongly that your consideration should be that we're helping direct individuals that we know and that we can actually show you pictures of, and how this money that we're collecting is going to go through a nonprofit, but it's going to specifically people that are under siege and withstanding the attacks that are happening for the last 44 days today. The first of those are these individuals that go from around the buildings in Kiev, and they have found lots of the elderly and the mobility challenged that were left behind as their families, left the country. Grandma or grandpa said, I'll stay because I can't move very well. So these folks go through and feed them and provide them food and comfort. The second area where we're collecting money for has to do with the farmers in Ivano-Frankovsk. They're trying to do their planting season right now, and they do not have the ability to do so because some of their equipment has been broken during this attack, and it's affected their irrigation, and it's affected their ability, the truck that they use to take the raspberries from the field to the jarring plant. As we're getting short on time, the third one is about body armor for the civilian defense forces that are in. These are just friends that I know that were mechanics that now had to pick up guns and are protecting their homes and their families. And the last one is obviously, like the elderly, there's a lot of pets that get left behind, and we know a lady who has a farm that's collected about 200 of these cats and dogs and is taking care of them, and we'd like to make sure that they get food and water. So those are the things that we'll be collecting for. I know amongst all of you, if we would like to ask you for either a cash or an in-kind of $10,000 to help us defray the costs. We understand from the discussions that we've had that you have a plethora of folks that are in need. We ask that you consider that just like a tornado or a hurricane, this is an urgent need for now. It is not one we hope will go on for a long time, and we do not want to take anything away from anybody else. And we don't even actually want you to spend any money. We'd like you to help co-sponsor this event with us and perhaps figure out a way to defray some of the costs associated with renting the amphitheater, because they do get, particularly in terms of personnel, rather pricey. So I'm sure there are ways you can help, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I leave it to you to figure out how, and I wanted to ask one last question in the 30 seconds I have left. May we leave the flyers with our press release out front for folks to find out, and if they'd like to participate or also help us come up with ideas of how to get the word out, we'd like your help to do so.
Well, thank you, Colonel, for your service. In your 15 seconds left, why don't you remind everyone of the date and time and where people can help out?
May 21st. 2 to 11 p.m. at the Meisner Park Amphitheater. We got 4 bands, we have artists, we have food, we have all kinds of things that will give you the Ukrainian experience, and we want you to please join us. If you'd like to give, it's through VFW Post 9610. We're also going to have a thunder run. There's going to be motorcyclists coming. I'll let the motorcycle person talk to you about that. But thank you very much for your time. And ladies and gentlemen, I was very impressed with this meeting today, and I'm very grateful to be a part of this community.